So say the prayers together. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Narasimha Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatyadeshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langaitim Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Shri Guru Vinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Mishwaram Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, Mataji. So we will get started. So today we are talking about the Gita Mahatmya. So this is, as mentioned before, this is from the Padma Purana, Uttarakhanda, where there are several chapters which glorify the Bhagavad Gita. So this is now the 11th chapter. So Lord Shiva is telling Parvati, my dear Parvati, now I will relate to you the glories of the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It is not possible to tell its full glories, as there are thousands of stories. I will relate one of them only. So this story begins, here I'm showing you. Generally, as we have seen, many of the stories begin with a description of a river, a holy river. So this is a holy river called the Pranita River. So in India, there are many holy rivers. All of them are personalities described in scripture, of which the principal are the 7 principal rivers: Ganga, Yamuna, Kaveri, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada, Sindhu. So these are the 7 principal rivers. This one is is also a holy river, not one of the principal ones, but it's actually a tributary of one of the principal rivers. So this is the river Pranita, and the river Pranita is from a tributary of the Godavari. So Godavari is a very famous river. That's one of the 7 principal rivers. And you can see Godavari. So it comes from all the way from the east. It's almost like crossing the India from east to west. And it empties in the Bengal, sorry, not Bengal. This is Telangana, Western Basin. And the largest tributary, one of the largest tributary of the Godavari river is this Pranita river. So you can see here, if you look at it, so you can have the river, it starts from the Triambak hills, and then you can see here Pranita. So this is the largest tributary of the Godavari river. It breaks into many other smaller rivers. So by this Pranita river, there's a large town. It used to be a large town by the name of Megankara. And it said that in this town, there was a famous temple of Jagat Ishvara. So this is a Murti of Lord Vishnu. He's called Jagat Ishvara. So it's interesting, just like chapter 11 is known as the universal form. So the Murti here is also known as the universal controller, Jagat Ishvara. Jagat means the entire creation. And it's described, Jagat Ishvara is holding in his hand a bow. So usually we don't see Vishnu Murti holding a bow. So the name of the bow is Shringi. Sarangi bow. So all the items have names. So like Sudarshan is the chakra, right? Kaumodaki is the gada, and then Sarangi is the bow. The same bow was used by Lord Ram. So anyway, in this town of Megankara, where this Jagat Ishvara deity was there lived a very nice Brahmana called Sunanda Brahmachari. So he was a Brahmachari, Sunanda Brahmachari, and he would always, his main sadhana was that every day he will sit in front of the Jagat Ishvara deity and he will recite the 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So that was his sadhana. Every day without fail, he will recite it from memory. And in this way, he will go on chanting this 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And he will remember the form of the universal form of the Lord, as well as he will remember Jagat Ishvara deity, this Murti. So by doing this, he purified himself very much, and gradually he gained complete control of his senses. So he was very controlled and he was greatly devoted. And he was able to remember, as a result of controlling his senses, he was able to remember the deity constantly, all the time. So one day, this Sunanda Brahmachari, he went for a yatra. Yatra means pilgrimage. So along the Godavari, because the Godavari passes through many holy sites. So like that, he went along the Godavari river. Together, he didn't go alone. He went together with his other brahmachari friends, right? And he visited all the sacred places along this river. So here I'm showing some of the pictures of some of these temples. They are all famous temples passing along the Godavari river. And there's a lake also. So this is called the Viraj Tirtha. It's a very famous lake also. So here he went to Viraj Tirtha, and then he went to all these other temples as he passed by. And then finally he came to a place called Vivaha Mandap. It's a small town, and in this town it's called Vivaha Mandap. Now Vivaha means marriage. Mandap means hall. Marriage. The town's name was Marriage Hall. So then when he reached there, he searched for a place to stay. So this Sunanda Brahmachari, he went, and then he came to this Vivaha Mandap hall. And there he found a Dharmashala. Dharmashala is like a monastery, right? Somewhere where the traveling saints can stay, where they all decided to take rest for the night. It was a very spectacular Dharmashala, very nicely built. He was quite surprised also why in such a town The Dharmashala was so grandly built that the entire city, the entire town took the name after this. That's why it was called Vivaha Mandap. So he and his friends all went to sleep, and then they took rest. And then when they woke up in the morning, he found that all his friends had suddenly disappeared. None of them were to be found in this. He was the only occupant of this Dharmashala. And as he was looking for them, suddenly this man came, this elderly man, and then he introduced himself. He met this man. He introduced himself. The man fell at the feet of this Sunanda Brahmachari, and he said, "Oh, great sage, I am the headman of this town, and I'm so glad that you have come. So I cannot say where your associates have gone. So I know you are looking for your friends. I don't know where they have. I can't tell you where they have gone, but I can tell you that you must be a very amazing personality. That I don't think there's anyone who I have met so far who must be as pure as you." So then he said, "Therefore, please stay with us a little longer. I'm sure eventually things will turn up. Your friends may turn up. So why don't you stay with us a little longer? I'm begging you very much. Please stay with us and give us your association." So in this way, he was saying. So it's rather mysterious why he was behaving like that. But anyway, the Sunanda Brahmachari, he decided to stay. He agreed to the request of this hitman. And this headman also treated the brahmachari very well. He set up very nice prasadam. He threw on his name, and lots of comforts he gave this Sunanda brahmachari. But of course, he said, "I just need very simple things." But still, no, I insist. You are a great personality. By serving you, we will get benefited. So he wanted to do that. So after 8 days had passed, 8 days have passed in this way. And then suddenly a person came running, and he said, running, and he said, I have, what do you call, he came running and said that, "Oh, last night a Rakshasa ate my son." So this was a Rakshasa. So he said, "A Rakshasa ate my son. Please help me, help me." So then the Sunanda Brahmachari was amazed. "Rakshasa here? So where does the Rakshasa stay? And how did he eat your son?" And then to that, the villager replied, "You don't know, oh Brahmachari, this town looks very prosperous, but we are cursed in living in this town. In this town, there's one very terrible and fearsome Rakshasa lives here. And he lives none other than in this very mandapa, in this Dharmashala which you are staying. And he's every day he's eating whoever who stays in this Dharmashala." And then this the headman also came, and then immediately he fell at the feet of this Sunanda Brahmachari and said, "Oh, please forgive us, please forgive us. Actually, this Rakshasa, he came one day and he terrorized everybody, and we all were being killed by him and eaten by him. Then finally we agreed to come together and then beg his mercy and say, okay, give us your protection. In return, we will give you food every day. We will send one of whoever we will find to send him to you, and in this way you can eat him and then be satisfied." And then the Rakshasa agreed. And then so they built this Dharmashala, this mandap, very beautiful hall, so that travelers would come, because they know this is a pilgrimage area. A lot of people will be passing through. So they built this hostel for people to come and stay. And as they stayed, one by one, they were being eaten by this Rakshasa. Right? And this was what was happening. So, and then he said, so last night, he said, one of my friend's son came So this Sunanda Brahmachari has been staying in this Dharmashala for 8 days. So like yesterday night, a new person came, right? And this morning he couldn't find that person in the Dharmashala. So now the headman is telling, actually last night a person came and I made him stay in the Dharmashala. And then I realized I didn't know that he was actually a friend of my son, a close friend of my son. And this morning, when my son found out that his friend had come, because he was very close to that friend of his, he was very distraught. And then he didn't listen to me. He immediately left me and ran to the Dharmashala looking for his friend. And as he was looking, he came across this Rakshasa, and this Rakshasa ate him also. So therefore, my son has been eaten by this Rakshasa. And because my son has been eaten by this Rakshasa, I was very, very disturbed in my mind. And I also ran back to this Rakshasa and I begged him, oh Rakshasa, you are supposed to agree that you are not supposed to eat all of us. You are supposed to only eat the people who are coming and visiting this place. But the Rakshasa said, how am I supposed to know that he was your son? I didn't know he was your son. The agreement was, whoever is staying in this Dharmashala, I will eat. And then, but since your son came here, so therefore I ate him also. And then this man said, oh, what can you do? Is there any way, out of terrible grief and anguish, he started babbling. He didn't know what he was saying. So is there any way that my son can come back? Can you give him back to me? Please, you're very powerful and all. Then the Rakshasa, to his surprise, suddenly said, oh, there is a way your son can come back. It is possible. It's only possible by the mercy of a pure devotee. And to your great fortune and to my great fortune, there is a pure devotee who is staying here. This Sunanda Brahmachari. I have seen him. And because he's a pure devotee, I couldn't eat him. And I didn't want to eat him also, because I have not been a Rakshasa all the while. I was previously, I have been cursed to be a Rakshasa. And in this curse of a Rakshasa, I was told that the only way that my curse will be lifted is if I am blessed by the water sprinkled by the hand of a pure devotee who is chanting the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita daily. Only such a person can release me from this, miserable condition of a Rakshasa. So, and now such a person has come. So now it is your job, headsman, for you to go and get him to save me. And by saving me, your son will also be saved. So then the headsman told all these things to Sunanda Brahmachari. So after hearing this is the Sunanda Brahmachari who recited the Bhagavad Gita. So then Sunanda Brahmachari, he asked the headsman, okay, I can do what you're saying, but before I do that, can you tell me, what is the history of this Rakshasa? What sin did this Rakshasa do that he got this kind of a body? Then the villager replied, actually, this Rakshasa told us his story also when we came to have this agreement with him. So previously, long ago, this Rakshasa was not always a Rakshasa. He was a farmer, a simple farmer who lived in this very same town many hundreds of years ago. And he was guarding the fields. Usually he will guard the fields. But one day he was guarding the fields and he was a bit lazy at that time. And just a little distance away from him by the field, he saw a large vulture. A large vulture came, and this vulture was attacking a person who was traveling on the road near the field, near his field. And while the vulture was attacking this person traveling on the road, the person was being harassed by this vulture and was trying to fend him off. But the farmer, this farmer, he didn't do anything to help. So he was not bothered to help anything. He was just looking, and it looked like he was dozing off. He didn't really care. So at the same time, there was also a sage who was walking by along the road, and he saw this situation happening. And he also saw that the farmer there was a farmer nearby, and he was not helping this person in distress. And the sage rushed to save the man in distress, but the sage was a bit far. So the farmer was a lot nearer. The sage started to shout at the farmer, but the farmer just ignored him, and he was not bothered to help this person traveling in the road. So by the time the sage reached this person, it was too late. The man was already almost dead. So the sage became very angry, and he looked at the farmer with red eyes, and then he said, "Oh, you who are part of the Varna, you are supposed to be a Vaishya, and as Vaishya, you are supposed to be a civilized person. And a civilized person, you are supposed to protect people who require assistance, who require help." So then he said, "One who sees others in danger, especially from thieves or from snakes or from fire, or someone who's been attacked by weapons, right? Even though if he is capable of helping them, but yet he doesn't help them, right? Such a person is a sinful person, and he will be punished by Yamaraj." So in this way, he angrily told this man. And then he said, "You, O wicked farmer, you saw that the vulture was attacking such a person, right? But still, you made no attempt to save him. Therefore, I curse you that you take birth as a Rakshasa." And then to that, the farmer instantly fell, and then realized such a big mistake he had made. And then he came and told this sage, "Oh, please forgive me. I made a mistake. I was not supposed, actually, I didn't sleep the whole night yesterday. I had poor sleep. And today, this morning, due to my work and all, I was feeling very tired. So I was half dozing away. So please kindly be merciful to me, O gentle sage." So then the sage replied, "Okay, never mind. My curse is also a blessing. So you will get the opportunity to be saved by a pure devotee. You will come into contact with a pure devotee. When a pure devotee who is able to recite the Bhagavad Gita Chapter 11 and sprinkle some water on you, such a person, when he does that to you, your curse will be broken. And not only your curse will be broken, you will attain a glorious state." So in this way, the sage told this farmer, and then he left. Immediately, the farmer, he fell down, and then he died. And then when he died, the next life, he took birth as a Rakshasa, a terrible, fearsome, scary Rakshasa. And from then onwards, he terrorized the people in this village. He ate everybody up. And then he went some other places, and then eventually he came back again. And that's how the story about how the Vivaha Mandapa was built, the hall was built and all. So to satisfy this Rakshasa. So this was the story. So the headsman told the Sunanda Brahmachari. So the Sunanda, and then he requested, "Please, can you please go and sprinkle some water on him and recite the Bhagavad Gita Chapter 11. So the Sunanda Brahmachari went into this Dharmashala, and loudly he began to recite the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And as he was reciting, the Rakshasa appeared. And then as the Rakshasa appeared, Sunanda Brahmachari sprinkled at the end of the recitation. He took some water in his hand and he sprinkled on to the Rakshasa. And immediately the Rakshasa lost his terrible form, and instantly he developed a four-armed form, a beautiful four-armed form. And a wondrous aeroplane from the heavenly regions came. And this aeroplane was, there were two other people in this aeroplane who were having four-armed form, very beautiful, looking like Lord Vishnu. And then they came and they brought this person, this Rakshasa, who also got this beautiful form of the Lord. and they brought him and onto his aeroplane, and they were about to leave. At the same time, many other people suddenly appeared. Many other people suddenly also appeared, and they also had this wonderful four-armed form. And they all sat down in this beautiful flower aeroplane, this Pushpaka Vimana, and all of them were about to leave, going back to Vaikuntha Loka, none other than Vaikuntha Loka. Because these people, they all have attained the great liberation. So there are 5 types of liberation, and one of them is to have the same type of form as the Supreme Lord, Lord Vishnu. So to have a body just like Lord Vishnu. So that is one of the types of liberation. Another liberation, that liberation is called Sarupya Mukti. Another liberation is called Salokya Mukti. Salokya means they live in the same place as the Lord. So he also received Salokya Mukti. So all of them were going back to Vaikuntha to stay in the same region where Lord Vishnu was residing, in the spiritual world. So like that. So they were, and then to seeing all these things, the villagers were astonished. And then the headsman, before he fell down at the feet of these Vishnu Dutas, and then he told them, oh great Vishnu Dutas, where is my son? My son was supposed to be saved along with all the others who have died in this Dharmashala. And then when the headsman said this, immediately the Rakshasa who turned into this Vishnu Duta, he told this headsman, oh headsman, here is your son. He pointed to one of the four-armed formed Vishnu forms, and then he said, here is your son. Now he has also received Sarupya Mukti. And he has, therefore, now you can go and speak to him. So when the Vishnu Duta, the four-armed form who was previously his son, came, the headsman told him, oh please, why don't you come back to me? And then the headsman, the Vishnu Duta, he said, oh dear sir, you called me my son, you called me your son, but actually you and I have gone through so many births. I have had so many fathers. In fact, you also have taken birth as my son at one point of time. And in this way, we have gone through so many cycles, right? So actually, we are all souls. That is, this relationship of father and son and all this is all temporary. It's only for the moment, in this body only. But eternally, we have really nothing to do with each other. Our Supreme Father is the Supreme Lord of Vaikuntha, Vaikuntanath. So then he said, I am now, by the grace of this wonderful brahmachari, simply by this brahmachari reciting the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, not only the Rakshasa has lost his terrible curse and attained Vaikuntha Loka, I also, together with all those who were killed with the Rakshasa, have also attained this. So let me request you, oh dear sir, oh you who were once my father, surrender unto this devotee, give your life to him, and learn from him, and in this way cease this cycle of birth and death, so that you don't have to go through your miserable cycle in this material world. Come back also to the spiritual world. So then in this way, after telling this, there was this statement. He said, from Sri Krishna's mouth, these nectarian instructions of the Bhagavad Gita Chapter 11 came on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in reply to the questions of his friend Arjuna. And only by hearing and reciting this discourse can one break the tight knot which is binding us to this wheel of birth and death. So after saying this, they all got into the aeroplane and they all left to Vaikuntha, leaving the villagers, the village headman and the Sunanda Brahmachari behind. So then Lord Shiva continues to tell Parvati, after speaking these words full of wisdom to his father, along with all those other fortunate souls, they all went to Vaikuntha. His father learned the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita from Sunanda Brahmachari. And very soon, at the end of their life, they also went to Vaikuntha. So this is what he did. The headsman apologized to Sunanda Brahmachari. He fell at his feet and accepted him as the guru. And in this way, the Sunanda Brahmachari taught him to also chant the Bhagavad Gita daily. And he also became a devotee. And in this way, they all attained the spiritual world. So that was the story. And they attained the darshan of Lord Vishnu. So then Lord Shiva says, my dear Parvati, you have heard the glories of the 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is capable of destroying all sinful reactions. So that is the story of the Gita Mahatmya in glorification of the 11th chapter. So it's a nice story. We heard how each chapter is wonderful. So this particular chapter is especially good to ward off, this kind of Rakshasa, evil spirit, this kind of situations. So it's a very nice thing to practice. Of course, we are not in devotional service. That is not the main purpose of why we read Bhagavad Gita. The main purpose is to develop devotion in our heart, so that we can purify our desires, and in this way we can attain the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, break the cycle of birth and death, and attain the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. So this wondrous chapter of 11th chapter is known as the Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga, or known as the universal form. So Vishwarupa means this is the chapter where Krishna shows his universal form, the wondrous universal form. So in this chapter, it begins with Arjuna. From Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has been telling Arjuna about devotional service, particularly chapter 7 onwards. Chapter 7, he reveals his real position. I am the source of everything, Arjuna. Actually, it's from me everything comes. See, he tells all these things in chapter 7. I am the goal of yoga and all of that. And then he says in chapter 8, how thinking of me at the time of death, you can attain me. And then in chapter 9, he goes into details about how we can think about him. So he talks about Bhakti Yoga. So he says, whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you eat, do it as whatever charity you perform, whatever sacrifice, whatever work you do it in my name, remembering me. So in this way, this is the basics of devotional service. So like that, he gives lots of practical instructions in chapter 9. And then in chapter 10, he will speak more about himself. He will start telling Arjuna, actually, I am the source of everything. All which is splendorous, all which is wonderful, if at all there is anything beautiful or wonderful in this universe, if at all anybody has any special abilities or any great powers or beauty or whatever, understand that it is all simply a spark coming from me. So after saying all these things and telling about himself, just telling, right? Arjuna was already awakened. His illusion was already dispelled, and he was already accepting everything Krishna was saying. So therefore, in the first verse, Arjuna will say, "Oh Krishna, my illusion is destroyed. So you have given me the most confidential knowledge." So this is the first time he speaks. Arjuna will speak. From chapter 7 onwards, Arjuna stops speaking. He's just listening only. So chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 10, Krishna will be speaking non-stop. And then what is the result of that? The result is Arjuna will tell in chapter 11 how his illusion has been removed. He's no longer in illusion. So he's no longer miserable. He's no longer, disturbed mentally. Whatever we heard in chapter 1 and chapter 2, all that is gone. His original understanding is awakened. So it says, my illusion is destroyed. How has his illusion become destroyed? Simply by hearing about Krishna. From Krishna. Krishna has been telling about yoga. He's been telling about devotional service. So this devotional, in the beginning, Krishna was talking about yoga, but that didn't really destroy Arjuna's illusion because he was still confused. He was asking one question after another. He said, what about this? What about that? How is this? But after he spoke about devotional service, Arjuna's question stopped. This indicates that he completely became enlightened. So after hearing this, so Arjuna will tell Krishna, I have heard about all your glories and my illusion is destroyed. But Arjuna is thinking about the people, because now he knows the purpose of why Bhagavad Gita has been spoken. It was spoken not only for his purpose, it's actually spoken for the people of the world, the future generations, especially for Kali Yuga. So, knowing this, Arjuna asks, okay, you have told about me, so now can you show me about all the glories that you have mentioned? So this is for the doubting people. So, and here he's also trying to establish, he's trying to say, okay, I've heard about it from Krishna. So in the future, people may doubt about this. So therefore, why don't you reveal this form? Show me all these glories so that people cannot doubt. They can understand your actual position. And that is the reason this story of this Bhagavad Gita is narrated by a blind person, to a blind person, to Dhritarashtra, by someone who's so far away. You know, remember how this Dhritarashtra is hearing this from Sanjaya, his secretary, and Sanjaya is far away in Hastinapura, but through his mystic vision, by the blessings of Vyasadev, he got this mystic vision where he can see whatever that's happening far away. And he was also able to see the universal form. And in this way, he narrated to Dhritarashtra. So everybody in this world can know that this really happened. So he said, can you show me? So then he showed. So then Arjuna, after showing this universal Virat Rupa form, Arjuna started to pray. Oh, you are the supreme primal. He became overwhelmed. When this form was revealed, he became overwhelmed, and then he started simply, prayers started erupting from his mouth. You are the supreme primal objective. You are the ultimate resting place. So you hear the verse, 11-15. I'll just say the verse. Arjuna uvacha pasyami devam stava deva dehe sarvam stata bhuta visesha sangan brahmanam isham kamalasanastam rishim sa cha sarvan uragam cha divyan. So you are the supreme primal objective. You are the ultimate resting place of all this universe. You are inexhaustible. You are the oldest, and you are the maintainer of the eternal religion. Oh, the personality of Godhead. So, sorry, this is the translation. Sorry, this is a different verse. My dear Lord Krishna, I see assembled in your body all the demigods, all the devatas in the world are all assembled within you. I see Brahma sitting on the lotus flower, as well as Lord Shiva and all the sages and divine serpents, right? So Brahma, Isha, Isha is Lord Shiva. They're all seated on the lotuses around you, right? Rishims are also there, all the Rishi, and many divine serpents, Uragam, are all also there. So you can see the Nagas. So you are the supreme primal objective. In this way, he started glorifying the Lord in different prayers. So here's another beautiful prayer which he says, Anadi Madhyantam Ananta Viryam Ananta Bahum Sashi Surya Netram Pashyami Tvam Dipta Huta Savaktram Swateja Savisham Idam Tapantam. Translation is, you are without origin, Anadi, and you are the middle, Madhyantam, and you are also the end, Ananta. And you don't have a beginning. You don't have beginning. You are also the middle, and you are also the end of everything. Your glory is unlimited, right? Ananta Bahum, and you have many numberless arms, so many arms. And the sun and the moon, Sasi is the moon, Surya is the sun, and both of these are like your eyes, Netram. I see you with blazing fire coming forth from your mouth, heating this entire universe by your radiance. So in this way, he started to glorify the Lord. Although you are one, you are spread throughout the sky and the planets and all the space in between. So he's referring to the Paramatma. Although you are one person, but still you have expanded into so many local expansions, and they are everywhere, all over the sky and the planets and in the space in between also. Everywhere you are there. So this is just some example of some of the prayers. There are many other prayers in this chapter. You can read. So they are there. So Krishna will say, okay, I want you want to see me, Arjuna? You want to see my universal form? Okay, I will show you my universal form. Everything can be seen in this universal form. All of material creation, including time, past, present, future, all you can see within this universal form. But you need divine eyes to see it. With these eyes, you can't. So I will bless you with divine eyes. And this way you can see. And then Arjuna saw the amazing, beautiful form of everything, all of material creation situated within this form. He could see all the devatas, no end, no beginning, no middle, no end. So this is called the Virat Rupa, the universal form. And being overwhelmed, Arjuna prays and offers beautiful prayers, glorifying this universal form. From 11:18 to 11:22, you can see. But as he is giving his prayers, this beautiful, wondrous, majestic form starts to become different, starts to become more scary. It becomes more scary because he sees fire erupting everywhere. And then he sees so many things entering into the mouth and being gnashed by the teeth of the Virat Rupa. So actually, now Krishna slowly starts to show Kala Rupa. Kala Rupa is the form of time. And then very terrible form. Everything is, time is the greatest destroyer. It destroys everything. So eventually, everything becomes old and gets destroyed. He sees all the people in the Mahabharata war about to die, all of them rushing into the mouths of the Virat Rupa. And then he becomes very, very scared and disturbed in his mind. And then say, oh, you of terrible form, who are you? How, oh God of gods, please tell me, who are you? And then in response, the great Kala Rupa now, he will say, I am time, time I am. So, right? So in this way, he will mention. And in this way, I am past, present, and the future. So he reveals the Kala Rupa Darshan. So you can read about that from 11:23 to 11:34. And then after seeing the Kala Rupa and being revealed about this form, Arjuna will start to pray, oh Vishwarupa, oh you are so wonderful, so fearsome, and I cannot take this anymore. I cannot see this fearsome image. Please show me back your most beautiful form. Show me back your most the original form of your form, transcendental form. So let this be finished. So then Kala Rupa also will say, okay, let it be finished. And then he will show his original Swayam Rupa form. So this Kala Rupa is a material form, which is not a real form. It is simply a representation of the material universe. And then now he shows his original form, back to the two-armed form of the Supreme Lord. So then Krishna will tell Arjuna, this form that you're seeing before me, before you now, as I stand before you in my two arms form, this form is a very rare form, which even the Devatas have never seen usually before. It's very rarely seen, this two-armed form of mine, holding a flute and in this way and all that. He wasn't holding a flute at that time, but still he was showing his Krishna form, two-armed form. And why it is confidential? Because this is the Eka Swayam Rupa, Krishna's original form in the spiritual world. from this original form, he expands into other forms, such as Lord Vishnu, such as the original form is, the original expansion is Balaram. And then from there, Vishnu, the different types of Vishnus. And then from all the other incarnations, they all come from the one original form. So therefore, Krishna is called Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality of Godhead. Swayam Rupa Krishna. So then he tells Arjuna, this original form of mine is not easily understood, right? You cannot understand it directly from the Vedas. You cannot understand it by doing charity, by doing pious activity, or even simply by performing worship. You can only understand me, the mysteries of my personality, only through pure devotional service, Ananya Bhakti. So only through Ananya Bhakti you can understand. So therefore Krishna will say, these are the points. Sudurdarsham idam rupam. That means this form that you are seeing now is Su. That means Su comes from the word Sundar, extremely beautiful. And it's very rare, Durdarsham, very, very rare, this what you're seeing, right? This form of mine. Even the Devas are always aspiring to see my original form. And you cannot understand this not from the Vedas, not from the tapasya, your austerities which you perform, not from charity, dana, right? You cannot see this. Then how can we know Krishna? Krishna reveals in 1154, very beautiful verse. Bhaktya tu ananyaya sakya aham evam vido arjuna Jnatum drashtum cha tatvena pravishtum cha parantapa. So this word, he says, how can we know Krishna? Bhaktya tu ananyaya, only by pure, undivided devotional service. That means someone who's following in the footsteps of bhakti, pure devotion. This pure devotion is the only way when one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his original form. Can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly? So not only pure devotional service will help us to understand the Supreme Lord and reveal the mysteries of his pastimes, it will also bring us directly to his darshan. So we can start seeing the Lord simply by the practice of pure devotional service. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So therefore, Bhagavatam says, Ete chamsa kala pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and he is very mysterious. So to understand him, one can only see with the eyes of love. So therefore, Lord Brahma prays in the Brahma Samhita, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena, Santah Sataiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti, Yam Shama Shuntaram Achintya Guna Swarupam, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So, when one is able to see Shama Sundar in this three-bended form, how he can see? Only with Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. That means with one's eyes is blind, so what he has to do? He has to put a special medicine, ointment, a special ghee ointment, he applies on his eyes like kajal, and after he applies it on his eyes, then he can see the Lord. This kajal or special ointment which he applies on his eyes is the ointment of pure love for Krishna. That is only due, that is the ripened fruit of bhakti. Why we perform bhakti? By performing bhakti, we can get this pure love of Krishna. And when we get that pure love of Krishna, then we can see Krishna with our eyes. So that is the understanding. So then after that, Krishna, this in chapter 11 comes the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. If all of these Bhagavad Gita, all the verses, all 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita can be condensed and put inside one single verse, like the seed is called the seed. So from this one single verse, the rest of it erupts. So this is that verse, 1155. Mat karma krin mat paramo mat bhaktaha sangha varjitaha nirvairaha sarva bhuteshu yaha samam eti pandava. So the translation is, my dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, right? Mat karma krin mat paramo mat bhakta sangha varjitaha. So mat bhakta, one who is my devotee, right? Who engages. So mat karma, karma means performs activities in my devotion, as my devotee, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation. That means he is not performing bhakti because he wants something from me, because he thinks that I can give him liberation, or because he thinks I can give him wealth. Not because of these things is performing bhakti. So free of karma and free of jnana. He's not performing bhakti because he's curious, because he wants to know more and more, because he's trying to understand through his intelligence. Not only because of that. He's performing bhakti because he wants to surrender his heart to me. So that is mat karma krin mat paramo. So considering me to be the supreme, he engages all his work for me. He considers me to be the supreme. He engages in my devotional service, mat bhakta, right? Freed from the contamination of karma and jnana, right? And nirvaira, without envy. Very important. We cannot perform bhakti unless we have it. And he doesn't have any enemies. He sees everyone without looking as enemy or friend. He sees everybody as a living entity, sarva bhuteshu. So he works for me, makes me the supreme goal of his life, who is friendly to every living being. So he doesn't mean ill. That means he's not envious of any living entity. He's friendly to them all. He certainly comes to me. So this is the essence. So this is what we are aiming for. So by performing bhakti yoga, it will help us to achieve these goals, so that we can finally come to Krishna. So therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam beautifully says, Vasudeva Paraveda, right? Vasudeva is ultimate goal of all the Vedas. If all the Vedas are speaking, ultimately they are trying to bring us towards Vasudeva. So Vasudeva Paraveda. Vasudeva Paramaka. He is the goal of all sacrifices. Whatever sacrifices we do, whatever scriptures that we study, the final goal is Vasudeva. Vasudeva Para Yoga. He is the ultimate goal of yoga. Vasudeva Para Kriya. He is the ultimate goal of all activities, fruitive activities. If we perform any job, any work, it should ultimately bring about remembrance of Vasudev. That is the ultimate purpose. Vasudev Paranyanam. All our knowledge, all our intelligence should ultimately come to the lotus feet of Vasudev. It should reveal to it should bring us to him. Otherwise, it is pointless. Right? That is the ultimate point of everything. Vasudeva Param Tapa. All the austerities one performs, ultimately, the ultimate goal is to attain Vasudeva. Vasudeva Paro Dharmo. The ultimate purpose of dharma or religion is to realize Vasudeva. And Vasudeva Para Gati. Gati means one obtains. The ultimate thing one wants to obtain is ultimately Vasudeva. And Vasudeva is the son of Vasudev, and that is Krishna. That is the goal of life. So this is the beautiful verse 1155. It's the last verse of the 11th chapter. It's wonderful verse to remember, to recite again and again. If we cannot recite the entire chapter, we should at least recite this verse. Mat karma krin mat paramo mat bhakta sangha varjitaha nirvairaha sarva bhuteshu yasamam eti pandava. So if we say this again and again and again, then slowly devotion will spring in our heart. So this is our purpose in life, ultimately to attain the lotus feet of Vasudeva. And the best way to attain the lotus feet of Vasudeva, it begins by hearing and chanting. So therefore, we can chant the names of the Lord. So let us chant together. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Tat Sat. Jai Sri Sunita Gaura Panchatattva ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Sri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we hope we can continue chanting this Hare Krishna mantra daily. Slowly we can increase our rounds, bring it to 16 rounds eventually, right? And in this way we can attain the goal of the ultimate goal of everything. The ultimate goal of everything is what? Sarva Vasudeva Paragatim, Param Gatihi. The ultimate gain of everything is to get Vasudeva, to get lotus feet of Supreme Lord. Okay. So, okay, this is quite amazing because I managed to finish before 9, 2 minutes before 9. Usually it's never happened before. So anyway, any questions from anybody before we end? So I hope you enjoyed the story and the presentation, and hopefully it reminded you back of the chapter 11, which we covered in our Gita Gyan level 1. So, and hopefully it will inspire you to also, all of us, to go and read back chapter Bhagavad Gita, particularly chapter 11, and go through the purports very nicely. And any questions, anything at all, if there are any doubts, clarifications, feel free to ask. You can mention, you can unmute yourself and you can ask here. You can type in the chat box, or you can also put it in the WhatsApp, or you can even record your voice and put it in the WhatsApp and I can answer. Okay.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, I want to ask about the muktis, right? The type of muktis that you described earlier, right? So I wanted to ask, I mean, when these jivas, right, they get muktis and different type of muktis, and once they go there, I mean, once we achieve the kingdom of God, is there any I mean, advancement in the mukti itself? Like, is there any steps in the mukti itself, or will it create like a competition among the jivas, or then the different types of mukti? So I'm just asking out of curiosity.
No, it's a very, very good question. Actually, this question will lead to a higher understanding. So you can see from the Gita Mahatmya, right? So many stories we have heard. Simply by reciting Bhagavad Gita, or simply by, so many wonderful ways how they have attained mukti. So actually, this is the great secret. The Lord is very, very, very merciful, and He is waiting. He doesn't want us to suffer in this material creation. He's waiting to give us liberation. But actually, liberation is just one step. Liberation is not the end of the road, because liberation simply means we are free from the cycle of birth and death. But it doesn't mean that we have attained the spiritual kingdom eternally. So the point is, it's like this. It's like you go to prison. We are all in prison now. Okay, this material world is like a prison, and in this prison, we are always thinking, oh, when can I be free? When can I be free? So finally, when we are free, simply because we are free from prison, that doesn't mean that we may not go back to the prison. Okay, now we are free, but what do I do? How do I engage myself? How do I? What should I do? So unless we are properly properly, or what do you call, engaged, then out of bad engagement, we may again end up in prison. So the thing is, the Lord makes it easy for us to attain liberation. You know, there are 6 boats that gives us liberation. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, right? Okay, the first boat is Charanamrita. If we constantly take Charanamrita of the Lord, whenever we go to the temple of the Lord, we take Charanamrita with great respect. And simply by serving Charanamrita, by serving Prasadam, we can get liberation at the end of life. We do not go to Yamaraj, we don't have to take birth. Simply by, the second boat is Ganga, right? The holy river. By serving Ganga, right, we can, by taking a dip, by worshipping her, we can attain liberation by getting her favor. The third boat is Tulasi Maharani. By serving Tulasi Maharani, in this way we can get her mercy and we can also attain liberation. These are all these are the 3 boats, and then the 4th boat is Ekadasi. By observing Ekadasi faithfully, we can also attain liberation. And the 5th boat is what's the 5th boat? Ekadasi, or holy festivals, right? Special appearance days of the Lord, like Narasingha Chaturdasi, Janmashtami, Gaura Purnima. So it comes under the same category. The 5th one is chanting the holy name. Chanting the holy name. And the 6th one is reciting or studying the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, the scriptures of the Lord. Grantha Seva. So Grantha Seva, Nama Seva, Tulasi Seva, Ganga Seva, Charnamrita Seva. So these are the 6 boats which we can easily get liberation. But okay, when we talk about liberation, there are 5 types of liberation. One is called Sayujya. Sayujya Mukti means to merge into the Brahman. That means I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be engaged. I just want to just merge into the light and do nothing. So that is Sayujya Brahman. Now, devotees of the Lord don't want Sayujya Brahman. They never want Sayujya Brahman. They rather be in the material world rather than to get Sayujya Mukti. Because there is no activity. And when there is no activity, there is no service to the Lord. So they cannot tolerate a situation where they don't want service. So devotees are not like that. They don't want to simply perform devotional service so that they get liberation. And then when they get liberation, they don't do anything for the Lord. That's not what devotees want. So they reject this Sayujya Mukti. Still, there are some people who want that, the impersonalists and the envious people and all that. So, okay, they may get this Sayujya Mukti. Like that, there are the other muktis, the same planet, living in the same planet with the Lord, having the same form of the Lord, having the same opulence as the Lord, having the Lord's association. So Samipya, Sarupya, Salokya, Shrishti, Sayujya. These are the 5 types of liberation. Now, it comes to your question. This liberation is not the goal of life. It is just the first step. It is, in fact, even something which is not really necessarily going to bring us to the higher point. Now, why I'm saying that? Because liberation simply means freedom from cycle of birth and death. And after being free, where will we be? We will either be merged in the Brahman, like the Sayujya Mukti, or we will be with the Lord in the Vaikuntha planets. We will remain with him, but that doesn't mean that we may get bhakti. You see, so many of these people, they may get liberation. They get this, they simply by hearing this Rakshasa, simply by hearing Bhagavad Gita, being sprinkled by the water and everything, he was liberated. He goes back to Vaikuntha, gets the same form as the Lord, stays in the same planet as the Lord. But he may not get bhakti. Bhakti is not so easily obtained. So he remains in Vaikuntha. He's neutral to the Lord. He accepts the Lord is supreme and everything. He remains there. He does his own things. And then occasionally there's, it's like a king. You live in the kingdom. There's the king. Everybody acknowledges he's the king. But we have our own duties. We do our own things. Occasionally we see the king, and then we offer our respects, and then that's it. So now here is the secret. In the spiritual world, Paravyoma, there are many, many, many planets. There are, and the most base, the standard planet is Vaikuntha Loka. There are higher planets than the Vaikuntha Loka. There is Dwaraka Dham, Mathura Dham, Goloka Dham. Like that, there are many other dhams, right? Now, in all these other dhams, neutral personalities cannot enter. Only in Vaikuntha, the neutral personalities can enter. Those who have become liberated, they stay in Vaikuntha. They cannot go beyond Vaikuntha. Now, in Vaikuntha, everything is perfect already. But the problem is, unless one has bhakti, unless one has developed bhakti, he cannot remain in Vaikuntha for long. So it will be there for a very long time, millions, hundreds of years and everything. But unless one develops that bhakti, one will again eventually develop icha and dvesh. He will develop aversion and attraction. So that is duality. And when one doesn't have bhakti for Krishna, you cannot have bhakti, then you will have, eventually it will become aversion. Oh, there will be envy. Oh, why is he only the Lord? And then when we have that, again, we will come back down to this material world. So when we come down into this material world, so then again, we will get trapped in the karmic cycle. So eventually, so that's the problem. So this mukti is not eternal. It is for a long moment, but it is not a permanent solution. So the permanent solution is for us to develop bhakti. Now, when we get bhakti, that is like permanently we can become, it's like getting a permanent citizenship. Otherwise, without bhakti, it's just like having a passport or a visa. One day it will expire and we have to leave Vaikuntha. We cannot remain there forever. But if we have bhakti, love and devotion for the Lord, then we will easily remain there for eternity. We will not come back again. Now, bhakti, the best place to get bhakti can only be obtained by the mercy of a pure devotee. Krishna has made it like that. If you want to get bhakti, it has to come through a pure devotee. You have to go through a pure devotee and get it as a mercy from him. He has made it that way. And in Vaikuntha, you don't get gurus. There are no gurus there. Everybody is a forearm form Vishnu Rupa kind of a thing. So therefore, to get a guru, you have to come back to the material world. And only through the material world, especially in Bhuloka, we get a guru, we can get bhakti, which is conducive. And here we will develop that Krishna prema. So that is the purpose behind this. It's so even it is said, even the devatas are waiting when they can come to earth and take up devotional service. They are waiting for the Lord's pastimes on earth because they see this as an opportunity for them to also associate with the Lord, get his mercy, and then purify themselves and develop bhakti and then go back to Godhead. So that's how it is, right? So mukti alone is not the end of it. That's why we want to do all this service. We want to chant, we want to read Bhagavad Gita. It's not enough that we want to simply get liberation. So this liberation is like a bonus. It's like Krishna, to encourage people to become his devotees, he guarantees liberation simply by a little bit of service. Little bit of seva is enough for us to get liberation at the end of our lives. But that's not what we want. Before we die, we want to develop bhakti in our hearts. And when we develop bhakti in our heart, we will go beyond liberation. Liberation becomes the servant of bhakti. You know, it is said, Mukti, Bhukti, Siddhi are the servants of bhakti. Say again, Bhukti, Mukti, and Siddhi are the servants of bhakti. Now, Bhukti means great situation, getting great position and everything. Mukti is liberation. Siddhi is great powers, great ability, mystic powers and everything. All of these things are servants of bhakti. If one has bhakti, all these things are automatically obtained. But if one has mukti, not necessarily one gets bhakti. Right? So that is the point. I hope that answers, Naveen Prabhu. Is that clear?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, Prabhu, clear. But I just one more question, Prabhu. Last question.
Yep.
I mean, even for the bhakti, right? My understanding is that it's not just to get introduced to Krishna consciousness, right? It's not based on the mind level or just knowledge of it, right? So the development of bhakti comes from all of the steps that we cultivate or do. I mean, the devotional service, everything.
Correct.
So when we will know, Prabhu, when we are getting that bhakti, when we will taste that.
There are many books that explains this. If you read Nectar of Devotion, you can, it tells you the symptoms. So bhakti, broadly speaking, is divided into two categories. We practice bhakti in the three modes. That means, like all of us, we are practicing bhakti within the three modes. We are not liberated, but we are trying to practice bhakti. So this is called practicing bhakti. This is called bhakti in practice. We are trying to practice bhakti. And then there is bhakti in liberation. So though this is already liberated, and then they perform bhakti, and they are free of the three modes. So there are these two main categories. So we begin by bhakti in practice. So in bhakti in practice, it's called sadhana bhakti. That means we perform sadhana. And in sadhana bhakti, there are many categories. Right? So like that, we first perform our activities. We do the 9 processes of bhakti. It begins by accepting a spiritual master. So we don't need a spiritual master to get liberation. Simply by performing so many things like this, like you can see all this Rakshasa, the Rakshasa didn't have a spiritual master, but he got liberation, isn't it? So, but that's not what we want. But if we want to get bhakti, we need a spiritual master. Accepting a spiritual master, and after accepting a spiritual master, follow his instructions. What is the instructions of the spiritual master? Chant 16 rounds. Follow 4 regulative principles, right? And in this way, as best as you can, serve the mission of Srila Prabhupada's preaching movement wherever you can, that kind of thing. So that is all. So by doing this, then by following the order of the spiritual master, the mercy of the Lord flows through the spiritual master and it comes to us. And in this way, we will advance. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, by hearing, we develop our faith. And this faith is planted in our heart by the spiritual master. And as we hear more and as we chant more, the seed of bhakti grows in our heart. And as it grows and grows and grows, we will see what will happen. What will happen is we will see that slowly we are coming to the mode of goodness. We are no longer so much into the mode of ignorance, not so much into the mode of passion. We are slowly coming to be established in the mode of goodness. And we develop a taste for devotional service. And as we develop taste for devotional service, we start losing taste for material things. So if you're asked about how we will know, so these are some of the symptoms of how we will know. We will start losing taste for material things, and we will start developing taste for spiritual activity. To hear more about Krishna, to understand more, just like prasadam. The more you eat prasadam, the more we feel like, okay, I don't slowly we'll give up our taste of other things which are not prasad. So in this way, if we perform this strictly, 16 rounds chanting strictly, following the 4 regulatory principles and hearing wherever we can, guaranteed this is a method which will work and it will bring us, right? So we will see step by step, and by serving the Vaishnavas. So simply by chanting the holy name and serving the Vaishnavas, serving the Vaishnava means serving the instructions of the Vaishnava. The instruction of the Vaishnava is to chant, to hear, right? By serving the orders of the spiritual master, that is serving the instruction. And we can serve the Vaishnavas. We can offer them prasadam, we can offer them sweet words, we can offer them appreciation. So like that, these kind of things, by doing this and being not envious of Vaishnavas, we will very quickly remove the dust in our heart, remove all the impurities in our heart. So slowly our impurities will go. So that is another symptom, right? And we will develop more and more attachment. And so these kind of symptoms are there. And then later on, there will be more ecstatic symptoms. Symptoms like, tears in our eyes when we hear the names of the Lord, when we hear kirtan, when we see the deities of the Lord, we become moved in our heart in a very emotional manner. So that kind of things are higher ecstatic symptoms, which will come at a later stage. So like that, more and more symptoms will come and we will be able to see. So the best is we associate with the devotees. The more we associate, the faster we will get all these symptoms. Okay, Prabhu, I hope that answers.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Understood.
All right. So bhakti devotional service is a beautiful process because it is joyfully done. Susukam avyayam, right? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. It is not a very difficult process. You don't have to go to the Himalayas. You don't have to leave your family. You don't have to eat nothing but dry leaves and just air. And you don't have to fast for days. Some simple austerities, Ekadasi, okay, some simple austerities. So if we think being devotee is difficult, it's much more difficult to become, a karmi, right? Because the destination of the karmi is what? It's quite terrible. Birth after birth again. So if we consider, it's much better to just take some little austerity, try to follow Krishna consciousness in this way, and we can very quickly see this process working. It has worked for so many people, right? And it is working. So with that, I think we'd like to, any other questions from anybody else before we end? Okay. All right, so if there are no questions, hope you all have a pleasant remainder of the week. and whenever possible, please do come to the temple, associate with the devotees, hear as much as we can. But whatever it is, in whatever situation, never give up chanting. So that should always, if we Prabhupada says that if we chant 16 rounds and follow the 4 regulatory principles, no power on earth will make us fall down. No power on the 3 universes in the entire universe can make us fall down. The thing is, people don't practice. So if we bring to that platform of chanting 16 rounds, how to bring ourselves to that platform of chanting 16 rounds? Hear more, put some effort, and also serve devotees. So in this way, very quickly we will come to that level and pray to the Lord for his mercy. So with that, we'd like to end. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Sri Gauranitai ki jai, Sri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. See you all. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.